What's good, folks? Welcome to another edition of the Cover One Film Room, the show that gives you the hows and the whys behind both the good and the bad of the Buffalo Bills. I am one of your two hosts, Anthony Prohaska, joined as always by Eric Turner. And Eric, we had discussed some things, as we always do, leading into show times. When we do go live or offline record, as everyone knows, we're getting closer to our regular rhythm and routine with the season coming up. But we, of course, got real film to go through. Who did we want to cover in the Bills preseason game versus the Giants? Was it scheme stuff? Was it individual player stuff? Was it positive? Was it negative? And then, okay, it's the day after Hard Knocks. Let's talk about Hard Knocks a little bit. And then kind of falling in line with true Buffalo Bills in the Cover One Film Room fashion, some significant news dropped the day of us
of
having
course.
an episode.
Thanks, Brandon Beane.
Yeah, thank you very much, Brandon Beane. I'm still thinking of the kind of the Red Wedding Day with the roster last year, and just so many things that always funnel through. But Eric, we have a very exciting episode today because not only are we going to break down some Bills Giants tape individually and schematically, not only are we going to talk a little bit about some Hard Knocks pieces from last night, but we get to lead off this episode with significant news regarding James Cook, the hold-in being over, and he now being locked up for the foreseeable future through the 2029 season after signing an extension today with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, breaking news. James Cook extended 4 years, up to $48 million. I'm excited and interested to learn the actual numbers on that because 12 a year is very solid for both sides, I will say. But usually once you get into the nuts and bolts of it, and those numbers start to come out, it may even be a sweeter deal because obviously this is from the agent. They're trying to make it look like, hey, we got him the most money we could. Obviously, there's some different incentive stuff and signing bonuses and workout, all that stuff that needs to get worked out and kind of filtered through. And so for right now, those numbers, it's a fair deal for both sides. Did I think Brandon Beane would extend James Cook? Not really.
Yeah, I thought it had no shot. I thought, but between the money there was rumored that he wanted, plus the way he kind of went about it, I thought it was like no shot. I would have said like 5% chance tops.
Right. And so that obviously the deal doesn't technically kick in until after his rookie contract is kind of over. So again, I didn't think Beane would do it, but after seeing Kyron Williams' deal, which we talked about, I softened on it from my perspective, not from the team's perspective. And then obviously once we start talking and evaluating like how important he is to the offense and why they need him, and we're going to break down a bunch of that today. You start to realize like how important he is and was to this offense last year. And more importantly, how far he's come from his rookie year when we evaluated him coming out of the draft. I went back to some of those notes, and some of the stuff that we're going to talk about as strengths now were actually some of his weaknesses for both of us in many ways. And so that's going to be fun to talk about, but I'm okay with the deal. I think Brandon Beane has proven that for the most part, he does a good job with these contracts, and this organization does. And I'm a little shocked, but at the same time, let's roll. Let's roll. This is a nice 4 to 5 year window. The Bills need everyone and anything to get over the hump and make it to the Super Bowl and win the big game.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And I'm in a similar boat. Like I mentioned, and like you started with, I had already just kind of made peace with it in my mind that this would be his last season as a Bill. And I was like, someone could give him 13, 14, 15 million on the open market. He'll go do his thing. Good for him. Chase the bag. No negativity. Do you? And just the hold in and then him practicing yesterday. And I was like, does he realize it's dead in the water and he's like, screw it, I'm going to ball out? Or is he going back to practice because a deal is kind of imminent? And so that was intriguing.
It's kind of funny is like, we're trying to like read the tea leaves sometime last week when he decided to start the hold in, but then like, we're like, okay, then there's all these like news leaks about, hey, we're close. We don't know why he's executing the hold in. And so then, when I was on with Sal on Turf the Tape, I'm like, the motive behind that, it would be come from the team, right? Come from the team like, hey, we're close on the deal. Why is he pulling this now? But it appeared to, one, yes, come from the team. But secondly, why Cook and his camp were doing that? Obviously to protect him from injuries and all that. But also, I think they were trying to put pressure on Beane in this organization to, hey, let's wrap this up before the season. We've been going at this for months and months now. You put it on pause. Camp's here. The season's going to start soon. Obviously, James, he wants to play in week 1 of the regular season. Like, he kind of has to at least play 6 games this year to accrue those numbers.
Mm.
But I think that they put the pressure on Beane. I do think in many ways Cook's camp did win and kind of force the issue a little more. But at the same time, it's funny because now, as soon as they sign Cook, Beane's like, yeah, or actually right before they sign, he says, in order for us to move forward with this contract and do the signing, you got to go to practice. And so you see
Yeah.
practicing again. We're like, what is happening? And so it's been a fun back and forth. Some, I'm sure stressful for people involved, but it's been interesting to see how things went and went down. And in the end, like I said, it's a fair deal, in my opinion, for both sides.
Yeah, like you mentioned just now, I think it does skew a little more towards of a win for James Cook. Like
Mhm.
maybe it's 55-45 or like
Yeah, very
53-47 or something,
fine,
but
man.
you're still, and again, it can be debated, especially now with how football is and people know contract stuff. Like, should you ever pay a running back? Like, is he worth it? And then there's a lot of fans have talked about today, like, okay, what does this mean for the Connor McGovern potential coming, like re-signing, and or David Edwards, like other guys that you got in the pipeline? How does that impact things or compromise those potential deals? And there's never a right answer until you kind of push things forward and see what comes out in the wash. At the end of the day, Cook got a good deal. If it again, like you mentioned, we have to see how everything irons out. Is it a
Right.
4-year deal? But it's really more of like a 2 or a 3 based on how it can
Mhm.
kind of end and be stopped. How does that actual average annual value work out? Even the total, I think, is a big one, because the 12 million average annual value, one more than Kyron and slots him in good, but that $48 million total is tied for the most in the league for a running back with Josh
Mhm.
Jacobs and the
Mhm.
Packers. So like that's also another piece depending on how the agent wants to market it, the team, whatever. But like you said, I think it's a win for Cook and his agent, who we thought kind of bungled things initially.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the end of the day, too, no matter what the money is, the Bills got a very important player to their team,
Mhm.
somebody who matters a lot overall, but especially on that offensive side of the ball. And I think that's something that's gotten lost with a lot of this discussion, is so many people have focused on the money that he wants and the third down piece. I feel like a lot of it has gone by the wayside of how, not just how good he is in the scheme, but how he's played above it, how he's improved, like you and I are going to talk about in this episode. And that's a cool piece as well that I'm excited to talk about in this episode, because we studied him a lot coming out of
Mhm.
Georgia. We talked about what he needed to do to improve in this league. And for the most part, he's improved in all the
He has.
areas that we said he needed improvement in. And he's very worthy of getting the bag. And so congrats to him and to the Bills for locking up a really good player.
Yeah, Patton's you're in there killing the comments right
Yeah,
now, doing a great job.
and it's his
I don't
birthday
think
today.
this
And it's
I
his
don't
birthday
think
today.
yes, happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday.
and you're running the show right now. So basically they say, I don't think this created a bad precedent for the team with other players. I don't think less of Cook win-win. I agree. I don't think less of Cook. I think both sides played pretty fair. And I think that Brandon Beane did have a little chip on his shoulder because this is the only holdout
Mm.
that he's ever had in
Yeah, he said
Buffalo.
he wasn't sleeping good because of it.
He mentioned that, so I do think he took that a little personal. I think his feelings were a little bit hurt because he feels like he handles most of these contracts pretty fair. But again, I think Cook was doing what's right for him and his family and future, and so I totally get that. I think it's fair. And then Patton adds, I can take the fall for today. He isn't a running back; he's an offensive weapon. That's a very, very good point. Because you
Dean
think
did
about it
mention that today too as well.
from this perspective, is look at the wide receiver market.
Oof.
Look at the wide receiver market and what those guys are getting paid and how many of those guys are on the field and what those guys are making. And then think about James Cook in a similar light. Well, yes, he plays running back. I know that there's that stigma if you don't want to pay running backs, as you said to lead off the show. But if you're thinking about him as a weapon, which again, he can be, do they always use him like that? No. I mean, when we're talking snap percentages, but with the way the wide receiver market is going, maybe you start to see a shift where teams really commit money to running backs that are dual threats in the run and pass game.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. Even just going off of, I was looking it up as soon as you mentioned that, like Josh Palmer, who the Bills brought in, we're excited for the role that he brings, but he's not some top of the market wide receiver.
Mhm.
3 years, $29 million, average annual value of 9.6. Another guy who we talked about in the film room earlier this offseason, Tutu Atwell, re-signed with the Rams 1 year, $10 million.
Yeah.
Like, the receivers are getting paid.
Hmm.
Like, a regular receiver contract is now, from an average annual value, like 10, 11, 12, $13 million per year. And we've seen that going back the past couple of years. The deal that, granted, it was the Jags both times, but the Gabe Davis money, the Christian Kirk money for the Jags, you're seeing guys get paid in a variety of ways. And so that weapon point and the usefulness point checks out, but also with the nature of how the game is going, the running game coming back in vogue, things being
Yeah.
about condensed formations and
Exactly.
marrying the run and the pass and more of the menu and without having to turn the page and all that. Maybe this is just another breadcrumb towards seeing that shift of teams starting to pay guys. And also, too, from a running back spot, so much of the conversation of, he's not on the field for 3 downs, James Cook, the usage, all that. This actually could help him age into his contract better and more gracefully, because he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear from the time at Georgia and even from the time in the Bills. So by the time this contract plays out, it actually could age better year and year as he
Yeah.
gets better and continues to improve.
Yeah, I mean that's they're paying him for what he can still be, right?
Yes.
There's still a higher
Yes.
ceiling. There's still potential. And when
Yes.
you talk about James Cook as a weapon, here are his numbers from last year from scrimmage: 21 touchdowns, second overall; scrimmage yards 1,603, that was eighth overall; yards per rush 4.9, that was fifth overall; yards per reception 8.5, which was seventh overall. Now, percentage of first downs or touchdowns per
Mm.
touch, 26.5%. He was gaining a first down or a touchdown. That was fifth. And then explosive play percentage, 9.5%, fifth overall. Obviously, that right there, the explosive percentage in the efficiency is really why Cook is so important to the Bills offense this coming year in 2025, but also in the future, because as we talked about, the entire offseason with some of the skill positions, they have a very nice skill room, wide receivers, tight ends,
Mhm.
very, very good weapons. But there aren't many guys that can be super explosive and be really the guy, the go-to guy when they need a big play. And so, especially if we're talking in the passing game. And so when they can do things on the ground and get explosive plays on the ground, a la Cook, or even some of those, short passes that he turns into, 6-yard checkdowns, he turns into
Mhm.
21-yard gains. He's the type of weapon that you do need, especially in the Bills offense this coming year. And again, in the future, because of the way the wide receiver and tight end room is structured.
Yeah, and some further stats on that. Out of 46 running backs last year that had at least 100 carries, he was 8th in EPA per carry, 7th in overall rushing EPA, 7th in yards per carry, 16th in rush yards after contact per carry. Like, he improved significantly in that area. He's not some bruiser, but he upped his physical game. And when you pair the physicality with the juice and the athleticism and the burst and the home run ability, he started to move towards being a little bit more of a complete total package type of runner with the ball in his hands. And yeah, you said it with what he offers. So much of this offense from a run game perspective is built through the offensive line and Cromer and Brady and good design. But man, there's a really healthy chunk of plays where James Cook is getting one-on-one with that unblocked defender by design, and he's winning. He's beating him with
Yeah.
some strength, or he's beating him with speed. We've seen him do it on duo for years, even going back to the Ken Dorsey years. But then adding what he's able to do now with the gap scheme stuff that they lean into, if not from a duo perspective, but more from the tackle pull aspect,
Yeah.
and still being able to be that strong zone runner that he's been all the way back until his time at Georgia. He's really developed, and Beane talked about that today, and we've seen it on tape and watching him for years. And it's not an accident, or it's not by happenstance that you're seeing him really be towards the top of the league in a lot of efficiency metrics, advanced
Hmm.
metrics, and even some raw stats like we have here from a touchdowns perspective and a scrimmage yards perspective. And yeah, and he matters so much to this
He
team.
does.
For, like we keep talking about it, for as much as Josh Allen is Josh Allen, the run is what starts this offense. That is the
Yep.
foundation. That is the baseline. And James Cook is the foundation and baseline of that foundation and baseline.
And what's funny is we expected that when Joe Brady took over. We
Yes.
expected that in that back half of that first year. But then when he had the entire season, off season, Joe Brady, I'm talking about, to create an offense, to really get the ball to Cook and put it in his hands, you saw what Cook's numbers were, and here's some of them on the screen because of Joe Brady. So some of the things they did, some stuff we talked about when we did the James Cook evaluation after the season, and we brought on Doug Farrar from Athlon Sports,
Mm,
were two things: putting Josh under center and James Cook on the dot,
Mhm.
And then secondly, 6 offensive linemen. So listen to some of these stats that we talked about in that episode. So 13 of the 19 rushing touchdowns from James Cook were from under center. 11 of those 13 touchdowns from under center were in the red zone, but only 3 of those were from 1 yard out. Again, that explosive element, the ability to hit the home run, to get into the end zone, to get 6 points when he's not a scavenger at that 1 yard line and taking those easy looks. He has to earn it, and he has earned it since he's gotten in the league, but especially under Joe Brady, if we're talking under center play.
Yeah, that oh, the under center piece is nice. And as soon as you said dot two, I mean it was like pistol. You can
Yeah.
still do more pistol stuff too. Yeah,
Yep.
he's progressed with like the heavier package looks, the red zone type of looks, but then even still not sacrificing who he is as that guy we initially wanted, where a guy that you can attack neutral and light boxes with when this team was more pass happy and pass oriented. And even in
Mhm.
that regard too, he still continued to I thought of this in my head just now, and I swear I didn't plan it. He still continued to cook. I hate that because so many people use that joke all the time now. But amongst 53 qualifying running backs last year, James Cook versus neutral and light boxes, only 25th in attempts, but he
Mhm.
was ninth in EPA per attempt, sixth in yards per attempt. He was eighth in yards after contact per attempt, 18th in positive play rate. He continues to find success in those initial areas where, okay, there's light boxes. He can churn up those yards quickly because he has that speed and that burst. Similar case for a neutral perspective. You've got a head on a hat, but yeah, that added bonus of now you can mash a little bit more with him when you
Yeah.
go with the 6 offensive lineman looks or the red zone or the low red zone looks and him finishing. I'm thinking the Seattle game with the touchdown where he finishes through like multiple defenders through
Yeah.
contact, a helmet pops off. Like it's just again, another added level and layer that I think that's the biggest takeaway really from me with him getting this deal is no matter how you look at his game, and we've looked at the positives and the negatives for years, like he's just stacked improvement upon
He
improvement
has.
in terms of his skill set, but also in terms of what ways he's able to function and be a plus player in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, last year, if we're talking 6 offensive linemen, he had 77 rushes with 6 offensive linemen. That was tops in the league, 456 yards, first in the league. All right, second best, I'm sorry. 5.9 yards per carry with 6 offensive
Awesome.
linemen on, and that was number 1 in the league. And then more importantly, this is something that's going to segue right into where
Yes.
he's improved. 4.51 yards after contact per rush.
That is
First
huge.
overall with 6 offensive linemen on the field. So it's weird how, as you talked about early on in Cook's career, he was kind of that third down type scat back
Yeah.
in a spread offense.
Yeah.
But as Brady took over, he condensed, he put Josh under center, he brought more guys into the box, and Cook flourishes. Like, who
Yes.
would have thought that? Like,
Yes.
and we're going to talk about how and why, but that blows my mind. 4.51 yards after contact per rush when there's 6 offensive linemen on the field. And you talked about there's a lot of duo, there's a lot of mid zone. But coming out of college, when I went back to my notes, post contact stuff worried me because
Yeah.
he would get tripped up so easy, especially because how quick he is. His feet
Yep.
are moving so fast. He would get tripped up so easy. His contact balance and physicality is one of the top things that really has stood out in areas where he has developed and progressed.
Yeah, the contact balance and the physicality was up there for me, right behind or equal to like pacing himself on gap scheme runs.
Mhm.
I remember you, me, and Kendall
Yeah.
breaking down Georgia tape and talking about like he just needs to let the play develop
Just
a
be
little bit.
patient.
Yes, just let the blocking breathe a little bit, and then you can hit the hole. You have the speed. You don't have to be right on top and right on your lineman's heels and not letting things expand so you can get through. He's improved in both of those areas tremendously. And yeah, the 6 offensive lineman piece is really awesome because we first build him as, and again, what the Bills offense was at that time, it was like, man, the Bills are going 11 personnel and spreading you out. You have to play light boxes. Now you got this quick scat back type of guy, and he still has that in him. But now it's like,
Right.
okay, also when you go condensed and go with 6 offensive linemen, and odds are you're still going to run, he can mash with
Right.
those personnel groupings. He can get a little heavier and push through. And Eric, you have another great graphic. Before we get to that, we got 2 super chats. I want to bring them both up
See
real
it.
quick. Sophia back in effect. Thank you very much for being here, Sophia. And she says, hit the like. Let's
Yes,
go
please,
Buffalo
guys.
Bills. Thank you for being
Thank
here,
you.
Sophia. Thank you very much for the super chat. We appreciate it. And then Patton keeps crushing it. Gave us a super chat. And also, I love this joke for forever. Pat says, but will this extension be enough to move Tremaine to edge? Hey, it's a legit question. We are playing the Bears. Hope you had a great offseason, fellas.
Evergreen. It's evergreen.
It
It's
never
not going
ends.
away.
Appreciate
I
you for
love
that.
it.
Thank you for being
Thank
here,
you.
Pat, in the comments and the super chat, making us laugh. That's awesome.
Right. So this graphic here, it's yards before contact is the left column per rush, and then yards post contact per rush. So again, and we kind of use this to add context to, hey, how well the offensive line is playing before there's contact made. Obviously, different concepts take longer and can get a running back upfield. There's a lot to it. It's a little muddy, but you can see in 2022 yards before contact per rush, he was at 2.42. And his yards post contact per rush were 285. So awesome in both columns, to be honest. 2023, there was a drop. Yards before contact per rush, 1.92. And then yards post contact per rush was 2.68. So they're kind of on a downward swing right there. So then in the big year, again, that year where he's trying to get that contract, yards before contact per rush was 1.69, the lowest of his career. His post contact per rush went up drastically to 3.24. And again, a lot of that credit has to be given to not only Cook in how he's developed and ability to maintain his contact balance, to, run behind his pads better. He ran much harder in high leverage situations against some really stacked boxes on those duo runs and mid zone runs. But you got to also give it to Joe Brady. So I think it was a great amalgamation last year between scheme and maximizing the player. I think Joe Brady did a great job, but James Cook also capitalized, and you can see that in these numbers.
Yeah, these numbers are a great representation of it. And a lot of these numbers we've gone through are a good representation of just the progress that he's made. And again, highlighting I think maybe not us, well, maybe us, but I think fans in general, we've gotten to this point where Joe Brady has gotten so much praise. Aaron Cromer has gotten so much praise, the offensive line, Josh Allen. And I feel like a lot of the discourse on Cook this offseason got to a point where it was like, that's fine. Like, jettison him out, drop anybody in there, and this run game is still going to go because that's how good it is. That's how good the design is, the line, the execution, all of it. And these numbers that we're showing you, along with the conversation and along with some film that we'll get to in a bit, puts into perspective, again, that notion of, yes, he is a good fit. Yes, this team is built well schematically and execution-wise for the ground game, but it's not, he fits so seamlessly and also is able to take it to the next level because of how he plays, how he's grown, his skill set, his traits, and becoming more of a complete back with the ball in his hands, like that long speed, the home run threat, the ability, the zone capability, the gap capability. And then also now being able to play through contact, be able to drop that shoulder and go through guys, to go through arm tackles and have it not slow him up. Like, he can break an arm tackle now, turn on the jets, and just get through and take it to the house. It's just really been awesome to see that improvement on tape, but also be reflected in a multitude of metrics like we've shown here.
Right. So his vision, it's something that I know I was not impressed with his vision in college. And whether it was zone or gap, there were some red flags early on. But you also talked about the pacing. A running back on certain concepts has a certain speed or rhythm, especially in these zone runs. But also they have a certain landmark. Hey, I gotta attack the outside shoulder of the guard or tackle, and so they have to understand the rhythm it takes to, okay, I have that landmark, but I have to also give the offensive line time to get to their blocks. But then, like you said, sometimes it's on the running back to kind of set up blocks. So he knows on this zone run that the offensive linemen in front of him on this mid zone run are working first level to second level. So take care of the D tackle and then go in and get 51 on this play. Look at how he changes his pace, uses his eyes right there, kind of to get that linebacker, number 51, to commit to the interior gap so that he can just bounce off right there into that C gap for a really nice run. That is stuff you didn't see a lot of, or at least consistently, in James Cook's film in college.
Yeah, that's a great call out. And you can see him as he's, faking that move inside. He's staring right at 51. Like, he's staring through McGovern to 51. And as soon as 51 commits to that gap, it is an instantaneous, boop, he's already moved on and he's passed. And then here's the piece, like, look how he goes through, right? So it's not only that he set that up and he improved in the vision and pacing aspect. Look at this legit defensive lineman just almost melt off of him. Like
Yeah.
early James Cook with the Bills, even if he broke that tackle, it would have slowed him down a little bit. It would have put a hitch in his giddy up a little bit. Not here. Like him being able to move through arm tackles, not just from DBs and, safeties at times, but through lost in the touchdown conversation. Like this isn't necessarily blocked for success. Like he makes the difference. 3 defenders in a short box of space to the corner and playing above the scheme here on this mid-zone run.
An unblocked defender and then an apex.
The turn of the car, yeah.
And he did that in that game against the Seahawks. And it's just so much quicker than, a defender can stop and go, whether, like you saw Dotson come downhill, but then he has to go, now he has to accelerate to get outside. Cook is going to win that every single time when you talk about that. But then the other thing that we don't talk about enough is his footwork in nasty weather, which is important in the playoffs. And this is something we talked about with LaShawn McCoy. It's something that we talk about with Cook all the time. His ability to make cuts, to excel and decelerate on these runs is really what sets him apart than a lot of running backs if we're talking inclement weather like you see in Buffalo.
Yeah, his ability to always essentially have his feet under him, no matter like the traction or the turf. Like he's got a good sense of, we talk about contact balance, but he's just got a good sense of balance in general. Like, look at this. Like, there's not a lot of slip in here. He set these up like this whole run up with some pacing initially out of the backfield, a little hop and then hop
right there.
But it's all under control. He gets through and then watch him just turn on the jets and there's no slippage. There's no like kind of, twisting an ankle or burning a wheel or a tire or blowing out a tire a little bit. Yes. And then when he kicks it into gear, he's gone. Shout out to Malik Mustafa, number 6 there. So I still have a draft crush on him, even though he's been in the league already. You just see that instantaneous change within the pacing, within the movement, here in the snow when it's all choppy and beat up. But even if it's in the rain, like he's always got that good sense of keeping his feet and his hips like right where they need to be in order to have his footing under him. And then it's not even like, okay, well, he's moving slower, so he's running slower. He just opens it up and explodes out.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable how he's always got his center of gravity and able to keep his, his shoulders over his knees and toes. And like this one right here, like there's guys sliding all over and he's just silky smooth. Like it's crazy, man. This is the type of stuff that even coming out of college, Brandon Beane in this regime probably didn't even realize this about him. You know what I mean? When it comes to playing in snowy conditions, and that field was awful. You can see that field was terrible. And he was still able to keep his footing, to make some big runs in this game. And again, I just don't think that gets talked about enough when you're trying to build a team to play in Buffalo in December, January, February. Like this is the type of conditions that you're going to play in, especially if you can get some home field games. And James Cook, he did it flawlessly, whether it was Josh under center, he's on the dot, whether it's 6 offensive linemen, as you saw there, whether it's duo, whether it's mid zone, he earned that deal that he got. He earned it. And I think that we've shown that how Joe Brady and this team has maximized his skill set. But as we've had, talk in comments in the chat room, there's still meat on the bone. He can be, if he can get some more snaps in those high leverage situations, and not just big games, but 3rd downs and 4th downs, he can still be better. There's still some meat on that bone for James Cook.
Yeah, and that's the really kind of interesting or scary thing. If you're an opponent, like what he can still become, I don't think he's hit his ceiling. He's still even just the jump that he made from 23 to 24 last year. I don't think it's crazy to think that he'll improve again from 2024 into 2025 this year. And whether that means, more stuff in pass protection, or it means him as a pass catching back out of the backfield, or just solidifying more of those complete pieces as a runner. Like there is some meat on the bone, like you mentioned, and the uses that you can get out of him, even if he doesn't improve as a blocker, which I know, I mentioned that because a lot, it's on the front of the mind of a lot of folks, but his his scheme diversity from a concept standpoint, like it just matters a lot. The Bills have, the core concepts that we know they like to lean into, but he's become pretty adept at a variety of concepts from a gap and zone standpoint. And that matters a lot when you've got a really good O-line coach, a really good O-line. Like you said it, Brady, and I think the system and Cromer, they know how to maximize Cook. And then I also think Cook's skill set and traits allow him to maximize everything out of the offense. The offense can block something for 5 and he can get you 15 or 45 out of that. It's not just like, oh, we blocked it for 5 and he got 6. We blocked it for 5. He took it to the house. We blocked it for 3. He took it for 14. Like just that ability and the way those things play hand in hand, the scheme being able to pick up Cook, but Cook being able to pick up the scheme.
It's very good balance. And it's
Yes.
very nice.
And then you have the MVP at quarterback. So then, like, what do you do if you're a defense?